A little bit earlier today, I caught up with Congressman Steve Scalise of Louisiana, who is the majority whip, and interviewed him on what is to come from his perspective in the new Congress beginning at the first of the year. Here's that interview. Well, as we just heard, it was not only the Senate that came under Republican control, but the House actually expanded its Republican majority. And so what does that really mean? What is that? How does that set the stage going forward? Joining me now to talk about that is Steve Scalise, the majority whip in the House from the 1st Congressional District of Louisiana. He joins us by phone. Congressman Scalise, first, congratulations on your re-election last night. Pretty significant win for you.
Thanks a lot, Tony. 78% of the vote. We really appreciate the opportunity to be able to represent Southeast Louisiana in Congress again for another 2 years. Yeah, I'm really excited about the mandate that was sent by the voters across the country. And look, when Barack Obama said that the vote was going to be a referendum on his agenda, I think the voters took that to heart, and they don't like the agenda, and they came out strongly and rejected the president's agenda last night.
Well, let me ask you about that, because I agree with you. I think the president himself said, my policies are on the ballot. And I think people responded overwhelmingly to those policies, those failed policies, both on the foreign and the domestic front. So was this, in your opinion, more about the president's failed policies than necessarily what the Republicans were proposing?
It was more about the president's failed policies, and frankly, the people that have been voting with the president. And in our state here in Louisiana, Marilyn was on the ballot. And she couldn't run away from the president's policies because she's voted with him 97% of the time, and she only got 41% of the vote, which is it's an embarrassing number for her. But again, it's the voters saying we've had enough with this radical liberal agenda. We want to get the country back to that center-right nation that we've always been. And frankly, our candidates we're very strong at making the case that conservative policies are better for people. And so while the details might not have been that clear, the broad picture of the failed agenda of Barack Obama and the liberals in Congress versus a conservative approach, and the conservative approach won out. Now it's time to go and govern and pass good conservative policy through both the House and the Senate and get them on Barack Obama's desk. And let's see if he's willing to work with us to get the country moving again.
Congressman Scalise, I want to ask you about that, because now you're absolutely right. The House has passed some 350 or so pieces of legislation that have been sitting on Harry Reid's desk over the last 4 years. That's no longer going to be an issue. I mean, the Republicans now, with control of the Senate, should be able to take some of this common sense legislation that the House has passed. Will we see the House pushing forward once again with the legislation, especially when it comes to Obamacare, when it comes to religious liberties? Will we see the House pick it up and push those things again, expecting the Senate to act on them?
Yeah, Tony, I'd like to see us go back to some of those bills that we've passed, and many of them have bipartisan support, but they're good conservative policies that were sent over to the Senate, and Harry Reid would deep six them, not because they wouldn't pass the Senate, I think primarily because they would pass the Senate, and Barack Obama didn't want those bills on his desk. And so I want us to go back and let's pass those bills not only through the House now, but we'll have a Republican Senate that'll actually take those bills up. And let's have those debates on the Senate floor. And hopefully a lot of those good conservative policies will pass to the president's desk, and it'll be good policies that people across the country will be happy seeing us move a positive agenda. And now Barack Obama's going to be in a position where he's got to make decisions. He can't just hide behind the Senate and bash Congress all day and say they're a do-nothing Congress. We're going to be doing some things. It might not be the kind of things he wants, but it's the kind of things that the voters across the country want.
One final question for you, Congressman Scalise. Specific piece of legislation. What happens to Obamacare? Will there be a push to repeal Obamacare?
Well, there's always been a desire to repeal Obamacare, and we're not going to give up that fight. And I think in the meantime, you look at things that we can continue to do that would undermine the law even further, including some of the court cases that are moving through the courts that'll help undermine it, which I'll give you an example, the case about the federal government subsidizing federal exchanges. That's going to be before the U.S. Supreme Court. I hope they throw that out and block the federal government from going and subsidizing these federal exchanges, which a majority of states said we don't want the state exchange, and there's no mechanism for the federal government to do what they've been doing. That helps undermine the law. So things that are actually focused on getting the economy moving and getting to the place where we can repeal Obamacare and setting the stage for 2016 too, because even if this president doesn't work with us, if he vetoes good bills that people across the country care about, it's going to make it even clearer that it's not a do-nothing Congress. It's a liberal president that's out of touch with the country, and whether it's Hillary Clinton or Elizabeth Warren or whatever kind of liberal they're going to put up, it'll set a better contrast for 2016, where we're going to have really good candidates running on the Republican side, but people will realize more what's at stake in the presidential race. That's how we really get the country back on track in the end.
I agree with you 100%. The work begins with, with the Republicans. I think even in this lame duck session of Congress, making very clear that they heard voters in yesterday's election. Again, Steve, congratulations on your reelection, and thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, Tony, and I look forward to working with you in the new Congress as we focus on getting the country moving again. So thanks for what you do.
All right, very good. Congressman Steve Scalise of the 1st Congressional District of Louisiana.